Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Today is Season 4, Episode 30, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, John Keir. Sorry I didn't say hello to you last time.
Oh, no worries, my dude. How you doing today?
Doing good. How about you?
Hanging in there. Are you feeling optimistic this end of the week as opposed to the start of this week?
I feel like I've come to terms with what's going to be happening this year. I feel like I've come to terms with I should expect like a 7-9 season and keep my expectations low. So I feel like I'm better now. How about you?
I'm hanging in there. I'll feel better or worse, I suppose, based on what we see on Sunday. You know the Steelers are 1-5 all time on the West Coast under Mike Tomlin?
I did know that, and you hate to see it. But apparently he changed up what he's doing.
Win?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Do you know the one win?
I do not remember.
That was 2015, a Monday night game. That was the one where Les Bell won it at the gun on the Wildcat. Do you remember who the starting quarterback was in that game?
Mike Vick. It was against San Diego at the time, not LA yet.
And what number did Michael Vick wear?
I want to say it was... I want to say 7. No, he couldn't have worn 7. Obviously, Ben Roethlisberger was still on the roster. 6.
He wore number 2. Is that a coincidence, Austin?
I
don't think so.
I
see where I'm getting at?
Yeah, I know number 2. I know number 2 starting on the West Coast. That's not the starting quarterback normally.
Exactly. So it's meant to be, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay. No, it's pretty cool.
You like how extravagant it took me to, how long it took me to finally get to that?
I did enjoy it.
Let's hope that some of those plays don't take so long to develop. But I guess before we jump into the game, of course, there's, the daily or weekly update on Antonio Brown. Did you want me to kind of jump into this thing, or do you have any thoughts on what just happened?
You could jump right into it.
Okay, well, for those who aren't sure at this point, we're recording on Friday night, late Friday night around 10:45. The New England Patriots have severed ties with Antonio Brown, but why have they done this? So, as you probably already know, Antonio Brown is facing sexual assault and rape allegations. The Patriots did sign him less than 2 weeks ago to the tune of a $15 million deal with $9 million on a signing bonus. But after just one game against the Dolphins, the Patriots have decided that his off-the-field issues were too problematic to ignore. Those accusations were levied by a former trainer of his named Brittany Taylor. They were filed on September 10th, which was the Tuesday after he signed with the Patriots. And then on Thursday night, so that being last night from when we're recording, more allegations came forward from a woman who had been previously hired to paint a mural at Brown's house. I'm not going to get into the details of that right now, but essentially more accusations came forward, and her name has not been released. But early Friday morning, screenshots of a group chat, a very strange group chat, including Brown, the woman that he was accusing, a person by the name of Eric B., and Brown's lawyer, among an SI, I think it's someone from SI, was included in this group chat. It was a very peculiar and odd sort of string of text messages, and honestly quite disturbing. And as soon as Brown sent that, he kind of opened himself up to be cut by the Patriots. It was just the last straw, and the NFL released a statement saying that he's not going to be placed on the commissioner's exempt list right now, since he's not on the team. But if he signs with the team, since they're investigating right now, they just said they're going to start investigating it. It's basically kind of you're doing this at your own risk. So if he goes on the commissioner's exempt list, I believe that means he might not play the entire season. So, man, there always is something else with Antonio Brown, and it seems like it only takes a couple days every time.
Yeah, and it keeps getting worse and worse. Like, we first started this whole year with a helmet, and now we're up to rape allegations, rape and sexual harassment. Like, it's just escalated, man. What's next? I feel like we're getting to O.J. Simpson level soon.
I mean, there's only so many. It can only get so much worse from this. As sad as that is to say, like it's gotten really bad, and it can only get the worse it can go. It can't get much worse than obviously the OJ situation, but we're getting closer to that, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, man. Like, and he might be messed up enough just to keep going because he's obviously attacking this woman that's making these claims and stuff, making himself look bad. Who knows what'll happen? I hope not.
So I think it's quite clear that if it's not going to work in New England, it's not going to work anywhere. I don't see a team taking a chance on him right now. Say, he manages to clear his name through all this. I'd be shocked if that happens during this year. I feel like it would have to be next season at best. I think Antonio Brown quite possibly has played his last snap in the NFL.
Yeah, and he probably ruined his Hall of Fame chances at the least of it. I can't see him make. He was definitely on the borderline after last year, but like now he's just like he's gonna be. People are gonna remember this and keep him out of Hall of Fame, even though his numbers are amazing, and just it sucks for him. He messed it all up.
Yeah, time will tell how we all remember Antonio Brown and his legacy. It's still not completely over yet, but I have to think that it's not likely. And if you're a general manager of a team out there, his talent is fantastic, of course, as we know. But the last two teams he's played for, he's played a total of one game for, and I think it's 29 snaps for.
Yeah, not a lot.
How could you justify putting any sort of money towards that? I don't think you could.
I don't see a team doing it. There's just no way. It's just not worth it for the headache. And if you saw Bill Belichick couldn't handle it, I mean, there's nothing he could really do in this situation. But if Bill Belichick couldn't deal with it, no one's going to be able to deal with it. It's just how it is.
Indeed, and there's no really easy way to segue from this, but I suppose let's get into the injury report for the Steelers-49ers game. Steelers are relatively healthy. Only three players not going to be playing. That's Roosevelt Nix with his knee injury. He was declared out early in the week. Vince Williams has a hamstring injury. He's not going to play. And Anthony Chicklow, the outside linebacker, he has a foot injury. He's been ruled out. Joe Hayden, James Conner, Vance McDonald, Bud Dupree, all those guys were a full go on Friday and therefore aren't listed on the injury report with an injury designation. So they should all be full to go. Any concerns here with missing Vince Williams and Anthony Chicklow?
Mostly with Vince. I feel like Vince is a pretty good communicator, and I like him out there. And starting like Mark Barron and Devin Bush together isn't. It worked out pretty well last week because the Vince Williams injury happened pretty early on, but I still would prefer Vince to be out there. But other than that, I don't. Roosevelt Nix wasn't used enough anyway. I hate to see it for a special teams value, but Anthony Chicklow, it might be. I hate to say it, but it might be a good thing. Not that he's hurt. I don't want him to be hurt, but the team just loved putting him out there on defense, and maybe this is for their own good that he's not going to be playing this game.
Vince Williams not being out there is a concern for me for the defensive communication aspect. This is another game on the road. We saw how bad the Steelers were in week one on the road, and you're either going to be trusting T.J. Watt, an outside linebacker, or you're going to be trusting one of the two inside guys, Barron or Bush, with the green dot communicator role. And obviously, Bush has done it for, I think, one drive, and Barron did it for most of the second half of the game last week. So not a lot of experience in this defense for either of those guys. So one would hope that they get at least someone more experienced to do it, or hopefully they're more up to the task, because this is going to be a difficult environment to play in. A lot of the communication issues will be tested this week. Make no mistake about that. The 49ers, on the other hand, they have 4 players that are questionable and 4 that are out of this game. Starting with the guys who are out, they're guys that we mostly expected were going to be out. They've got running back Tevin Coleman. He's out with an ankle injury. Wide receivers Jalen Hurd and Trent Taylor are out with a back and foot injury, respectively. And offensive tackle Joe Staley is out for the year with a broken fibula. Meanwhile, Nick Bosa and Dee Ford, both their defensive ends, defensive back Jimmy Ward, and safety Hart, I believe is how you say his name. Those 4 guys are questionable. Bosa's got an ankle injury. Ford has a quad injury. Hart has a toe injury, and Ward has a hand injury. So both sides are missing a couple important pieces, but none of them are, as I would say, incredibly key.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. I'm mostly looking at Joe Staley as being their biggest loss for them. I mean, Jalen Hurd was actually having a pretty good season. Season. He had a pretty good start to the year, but then got hurt. So, I mean, he hurts as well. But I'm looking at Joe Staley as probably their biggest loss with how well their offensive line has performed so far this year.
One guy we've been following with regarding an injury to his finger is Dante Moncrief. Although he hasn't been on the injury report, it's quite clear that broken finger has impacted his play to this point in the season. 5 drops on 11 targets, and Mike Tomlin has seen enough. He has been benched at the X-receiver position for Deontay Johnson, the rookie from Toledo. So he will now be starting opposite Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't see how you can't take this move as something that was entirely necessary.
Yeah, no, this had to happen. Dante Moncrief was not playing where he should have been, and he needs to see some bench time, and maybe he'll come back later in the season. But right now, it's just him playing is hurting the team.
100%. One guy that we've obviously had a lot of attention on is Mason Rudolph. So I saw something on Twitter. You look at the Steelers' schedule this season. With Mason Rudolph now at the helm, the Steelers are set to play play every team where there was a quarterback taken in front of Mason Rudolph in the 2017 draft. So to clarify, Rudolph was the 6th quarterback taken in the 2018 NFL draft. In front of him were Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson. All those guys were first-round quarterbacks, and then the next quarterback was Rudolph in the 3rd round. So the Steelers are obviously going to be playing Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson twice this year. They'll be facing the Jets and Sam Darnold and the Bills and Josh Allen at the end of the year. And in the middle of the year, right after the bye week, the Steelers will be facing the Dolphins, which is where Josh Rosen is currently playing. And on top of that, they'll also be playing the organization that passed over Mason Rudolph that drafted Josh Rosen, being the Arizona Cardinals. So you're literally getting every team that's involved with the quarterback that was picked in the 1st round in 2018. It's kind of interesting that Mason Rudolph, has to have this chip on his shoulder for being passed over for all those guys. Usually the 6th quarterback taken in the draft is the last one. It was quite clearly a talented group, but Rudolph is out to prove that he was the best of that group.
Yeah, it's going to be tough sledding from here. Lamar Jackson is currently front runner for being the best, I believe. Josh Allen's kind of just chilling there. Sam Darnold's been sick, and Josh Rosen is probably never going to pan out as he suffers with the Dolphins. And Baker Mayfield has underachieved so far this year. So basically, it's going to be him versus Lamar Jackson, the classic Steelers versus Ravens rivalry going on here with the quarterback battle.
Indeed, but if that rivalry game is to mean anything, the Steelers need to have some momentum built up, and that means winning this game in San Francisco. Quick preview of the history between these two teams. Two teams that have won 11 combined Super Bowls over the years. The 49ers lead this overall matchup 11 games to 10 in the 21 matchup, so this will be game number 22. The most recent game played between them was played in Pittsburgh in Week 2 of the 2015 season. That was when the Steelers put up 43 points, I believe it was 3 D'Angelo Williams touchdowns led the Steelers to victory over the then Colin Kaepernick-led 49ers, and that's the most recent win streak as the Steelers lost in San Francisco the last time they played there in 2011 as well. Just a fun fact, the Steelers have not won in San Francisco, the 49ers stadium, because they're now at Levi Stadium, previously Candlestick Park. They've not won there since 1999. Only 2 games between these two teams have taken place since then, but in those two games, the Steelers have been outscored 50-17. And as I said, this will be the Steelers' first game in Levi Stadium. I don't know if you remember the last game at Candlestick. That was a 20-3 romp for the 49ers in which Transformer blew at the old Candlestick Park, and the game was delayed. I don't know if you remember that one at all.
I don't remember it.
That was not a fun time. That was right after Ben Roethlisberger suffered a high ankle sprain. He came back and played way before he should have and threw 3 picks. So a lot has changed since then. Alex Smith was the starting quarterback for the Niners then. Give you an idea how long ago that was.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So we finally started compiling stats, Austin, for us to look at beforehand. get an idea after 2 games of where both teams are. And as we already know, the Steelers are not looking good in most statistical categories, while the Niners at 2-0. Sorry, I forgot they won that Week 1 game against the Buccaneers. They're at 2-0. They've looked pretty good as far as overall statistics go. You want to look at the Steelers' offensive matchup or defensive matchup to start this one?
Let's start with the offensive matchup.
All right, well, we've been talking about Mason Rudolph already. It's his offense now. Yeah, the offense itself isn't going to change that much, but it'd be ludicrous to think that nothing is going to be changed at all regarding Rudolph and Roethlisberger at quarterback. We already saw more play action being utilized by Rudolph in the offense. I have to think there's going to be some tweaks and changes here. What are you expecting to see?
I'm actually expecting to see, like you said, a little bit more play action with Rudolph there. I'm kind of hoping for a little bit more RPOs here, because I feel like Rudolph might be able to do more with those than even Ben possibly could. I'm interested to see. I'm not exactly sold on that, but I'm thinking there could be more run pass options if that wasn't clear. That's what an RPO is. Because I want to see if Mason Rudolph can make those kind of decisions. And I'm trying to see if James Conner also can get involved in this game. So I want more RPOs here, and so I'm mostly just more play action. I'm looking for more RPOs. I'm not sure of that, but I feel like it might be a possibility. What are you thinking?
It definitely should be. They ran that at Oklahoma State. That's a big staple of the Big 12. You know what else I want to see? Something that they ran at Oklahoma State was up-tempo. I want to see the Steelers come out and go up-tempo. I know it's hard to do that on the road, but I feel like that's something that if you can get a quick drive, say you go down and you take the opening drive of the game and you manage to go up-tempo and score a touchdown early, that's a huge message to send the other team. And we haven't seen the Steelers for years. They've been kind of a slower-paced team. We see Roethlisberger take it down to the end of the play clock. Maybe let's see them try to wear down this 49ers defense. Now, this could be a double-edged sword, because if you go down and you score quickly and the Niners go ahead and take a 9-minute drive, we already talked off the podcast about how long the defense has been on the field this year. That can be something that stabs you in the back. But I'm trying to not concern myself with maybe defensive falterings. It's more so I'd just be happy to see the offense get in the end zone, because we have not seen them have a lot of good drives this year. I think we can count on our one hand the amount of successful drives the Steelers have this year. There have not been many.
No, not at all. Not even close. The offense has really been underperforming up until this point, and I'm not sure the bounce back is even going to happen. We kind of basically got to hope and pray that benching Moncrief and Mason Rudolph is just going to play better, because of he doesn't have like an inflamed elbow while he's playing. So we basically have to hope here.
One thing that could definitely help Rudolph is the ground game, and that's something the Steelers haven't had much of this year. Their yards per carry hasn't been awful, but there just hasn't been a ton of running room, and there hasn't been much of a commitment to the ground game. Just no rhythm on offense, and part of it's because the Steelers just keep going 3 and out. But outside of the 23-yard run by Benny Snell, the running backs have just not been able to get anything going, and I don't want to say that it's completely on them or the offensive line. They both need to be better. Something's got to change, because right now, getting just 50 yards on the ground is not going to be enough to help Rudolph.
Not at all. We got to see James. I said Connor needed to come alive last game, and what needs to happen now is he definitely needs to come alive this game, which is a good chance. The 49ers, despite what the stats say, are not a good tackling team. I don't think Quan Alexander has always been known to be similar to like how Ryan Shazier played, where he's good at playmaking, but he missed a lot of tackles. Coming into this offseason, I believe he had like the most missed tackles of any linebacker in like the past like 3 years, something like that. He had a bunch of them, and so I feel like and this has been a problem, because it's not even just James Conner. It's almost like the Steelers refuse to run up the gut for whatever reason, just straight down the middle. When we saw Benny Snell get that huge gain, the 23-yard gain last week, it was essentially down the middle. I mean, like a little bit to the left side of the line, but other than that, like the Steelers have wanted to really bounce it outside, and that's not really I feel like that's not really James Conner's skill set or Benny Snell's skill set. So I feel like they should be rushing up the middle in this game. change the scheme a little bit because they just really want to establish those outside runs, and it's just not working so far for them. And but that being said, I have high hopes that they're gonna finally adjust. It sounds like they've been adjusting all week to all this stuff, and I feel like the run game might finally. I think James Conner's gonna have his first 100-yard rushing game of the year. I'll say that. I think he'll have 100, and I'll say he'll at least have 75. So I think I feel good about the run game going into this one.
It has to be good, otherwise they won't win. I mean, I know that it's more of a passing league now than it ever has been, but you got a young quarterback back there. You're going on the road, his first start. I think you have to run for 120-plus yards in this game to win.
Yeah, I think so, especially because the 49ers rush like heck. They rush all the time, and this sounds like a tangent, but what I'm trying to say is they waste a lot of time. Using the run game just kills so much clock compared to the pass game that the 49ers are good at controlling the ball that way, so you have to rush right back at them.
And not to mention that we're going to need a couple explosive runs. So Benny Snell had the one explosive run last week. I'd like to see a couple explosive plays in the ground game this week.
Agreed.
And take advantage of like you said, run right at those guys. Make them make the tackle. Run at them all game. They're not huge guys. Make them make the tackles.
And that's Connor's strong suit. Connor last year finished as like one of the top backs at forcing missed tackles. I think he was literally only under Saquon in missed tackles forced, and he missed, I forget how many games, but he missed quite a few games. So, like, this is James Conner's strong suit. Make a guy miss. Like, I feel like they need to use him right.
Besides the ground game, obviously, we need to talk about the fact that the 49ers, they do have 7 sacks this year, but all 7 of them have come from their front 4. They've rarely blitzed this year and actually don't even stunt that much. They just say, our guys are better than your guys, and they just rush them straight up, occasionally stunting on third down. But those 4 guys have all 7 sacks through the first 2 games, so expect a lot of 7-man drops.
And I find this to actually be difficult for the Steelers to handle. I feel like actually they perform better with the stunts and stuff, because I feel like the offensive line is so good, like, at picking that kind of stuff up, that the 49ers not stunting and just challenging with their best guys is actually almost kind of worse. That being said, am I scared, though? No, I go into this the same as I did against the Seahawks. The Steelers' offensive line is the best in the league, and that might be a little bit biased, but there's no one I'm scared of. There's no defensive line in this league that's going to give fear into me. I mean, you look at who the 49ers have played. Let's go back. They played, let's see, the Bucks and, the Bengals. Like, are either of those offensive lines good? Not even close. So, am I worried at the end of the day? No. But is what they're doing with the, with just their front 4, challenging the front 4 against who they're playing, not normally a good matchup for the Steelers? Yes, because I think that the Steelers are actually really good at picking up stunts and stuff, that those don't really work on the Steelers when teams try to do it. So I feel good about the offensive line in this. I think that the 49ers are their defensive line is a little bit boosted by who they've played, if I'm being honest with you.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm not super concerned. I mean, you pointed out the fact that they haven't played the best offensive lines this year. I mean, Cincinnati's definitely isn't good. And I believe Tampa Bay gave up like a crap ton of sacks in the preseason. They haven't been all that good as well. You know, just make sure that you get the ball out of Rudolph's hands quick. Don't let him sit back. I worry that the longer he holds the ball, it's not like we're Ben Roethlisberger where he can scramble out, and for years, Backyard Ben has been, seeing that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Seeing that with Mason Rudolph's not a good thing. I need to see him get the ball out quick.
I agree with that. I think that Mason Rudolph needs to be like Ben over the past few years, where he gets the ball out quick in that sense. We don't know how he's going to perform with, he's probably not going to have that same magic that Ben does, because he's not as big as Ben, and he's not going to be able to escape those tackles and make these weird wonky plays where he escapes the pocket just nearly getting sacked and stuff. We're in Mason Rudolph season now. This is not Ben Roethlisberger season anymore. So I agree that he needs to get the ball out very quickly in this game.
So you're not worried at all about any defensive line at all? Not even Aaron Donald and the Rams?
Nope, not at all. Because they don't have anyone else after that scares me. Dante Fowler is 100% overrated. If you could have your center and guard on Aaron Donald, even though he's a monster, I'm fine. I feel perfectly okay with that.
I still don't feel okay. I need 3 men on Aaron Donald to feel okay.
And the Steelers could still do that in that game because, like I said, after Aaron Donald, it's like Dante Fowler. And again, I don't think much of Dante Fowler.
All we've been saying since day one, since the Antonio Brown trade, was that someone else is going to have to step up at receiver. We already talked about Dante Moncrief. Everyone is assuming it should be James Washington with good reason. We already know about his rapport with Mason Rudolph over the years, but he does have a tough assignment. He's getting a physical guy in Richard Sherman who might not be as good as he used to be, but he's not a slouch either in 3 receiver sets. Assuming this is the case, are you thinking we should look for more Vance McDonald in this game, or should we look more for Deontay Johnson, who's the new starting X receiver?
So I'm looking actually more at Deontay Johnson because I've been focused on Vance McDonald's matchups the past 2 weeks, and this actually, with the 49ers athletic linebackers and their pretty good safeties and solid corners, I actually think this isn't a good matchup for Vance. I mean, I'm still starting him in fantasy because I'm forced to, but in terms of production, I don't expect much from Vance in this game. I'm looking at Deontay Johnson to be the guy that steps up because after like Richard Sherman, the cornerbacks aren't exactly great. Like they got some guys. I still, no matter what, this is gonna be stupid, but I love Jason Verrett. He hasn't played yet. He hasn't played a single snap yet, but I think he's their second best corner nonetheless because I just have like he hasn't played, which is which is why it's stupid that me saying this. But I'm just trying to say I like some of their corners. But the corners that are currently starting, I don't think that much of. I think they're okay. I think they're solid. But Deontay Johnson's who I'm looking to beat these guys in his matchup because I think he has an easier matchup than Vance McDonald. And he's kind of gotten pretty low snap counts these past 2 weeks. And so hopefully he's ready for this week and gets a little bit more snap count. Obviously he is because he's going to be the starting X receiver. But, I'm looking for him to win his matchups.
Yeah. I was also, I was thinking early in the week that Vance McDonald might make more sense, but, the thing about Deontay Johnson is he was probably playing more second-team snaps this preseason, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I have to think that means he's gotten more work with Mason Rudolph than Ben Roethlisberger did.
You could make that argument, but you could also say that Mason Rudolph really enjoyed having Vance last week. So
that's true, but Deontay Johnson also made a nice catch last week. I didn't realize at first blush that he kind of knocked that ball back into his own breadbasket there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he kind of got one arm out, knocked it to himself, and then kind of caught it as he was going down.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to see a little more from him. He's been kind of inconsistent. He has an OPI against him. He has a drop from last week that was kind of bad. But I want to see what the Steelers have in this kid, too. And, again, like you said, the athletic linebackers against McDonald, I'm not as sold on him this week. Plus, I feel like the fact that he did score both of the Steelers' touchdowns last week from Rudolph, I feel like from the 49ers perspective, you always like to have a tight end as a rookie quarterback. That's always a nice safety valve. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm trying to take that away. So I'm looking more for Johnson in this game.
They're also pretty... They're also pretty familiar with Mr. Vance McDonald.
Indeed, they've got a guy kind of like Vance McDonald, but just better in Mr. George Kittle. We'll get to that in a minute. But one last thing, how many explosive plays, how many touchdowns, what do you think the Steelers offense needs to do in this one? Can they put up 20, 24? Is that what they need?
I'm gonna bet on them being actually pretty good this week. It's been bad because I picked the Steelers to win the past 2 weeks in a row, but I think that the Steelers offense, from what I saw of Mason Rudolph in a short time, is going to be okay. Because I hate to say it, and I hate to say how it sounds, but Mason Rudolph probably outplayed Ben in this last game. And I don't blame Ben for that. He had a messed up elbow, but the offense almost looked like it got a new life when Mason Rudolph came in after that. So I feel pretty good about it. And as for the explosive plays, I think they're going to need quite a bunch. Definitely more than 2. I'm hoping for at least 5. I want to see 5 plays that are considered explosive by the Steelers on offense. And I think that they could possibly win on just those 5. I hope for more. But I'm kind of setting, like I said earlier, I'm setting the standards a little bit lower so I don't get disappointed too much. I think 5 is a solid number to start at, and I think that they could win with 5, possibly. What do you think?
5 sounds like a lot, but maybe that's just because I'm used to the fact that they haven't been scoring at all.
True.
Or they haven't been getting any at all. 5 would be a good number, I think. I mean, if you can get 100 yards out of 5 plays, that's good.
Yeah, you're right.
Doubly explosive plays. If you can manage to get like a 40 or 50-yard play, you're really doing yourself favors because the biggest problem this year has been driving the length of the field. If you can manage to get most of that field in one play, you'd really be doing yourself a favor with a young quarterback like Rudolph.
Yeah, man, that'd be good for him.
So, flipping to the other side of the ball now, my main concern with this matchup for the past several months thinking about this matchup is the whole time it was scheme. It had very little to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. It had very little to do with guys like Matt Breida or Tevin Coleman when he was healthy or George Kittle. I mean, it does have something to do with George Kittle, but it was mostly Kyle Shanahan versus Keith Butler, and if that doesn't scare you, it should.
It definitely scares me, man. It definitely does. I don't like... Keith Butler just is very stubborn with his defensive schemes, how he wants to run things. And we keep seeing the same things over and over and over again. Like, it gets tiring, like the linebackers on slot wide receivers and just all that kind of stuff, and starting wide receivers. And it's just getting terrible. And Kyle Shanahan has been really good. He knows how to use his players. Every single running back in the room he used. Last week we saw every single one get used. I believe Mostert led the team in carries, but Breida was right behind him and had a better yards per carry, if I remember correctly. They both did really well, but Mostert had a receiving touchdown, and then Jeff Wilson was used on goal line situations. He had 2 rush touchdowns. So he knows how to use every single one of his running backs and use them effectively to their best skill set. Like Mostert's used for the receiving. Breida's a pretty good receiving back too, but Mostert I think is a little bit better at it. Breida's the primary ball carrier, and then Jeff Wilson's your goal-to-go guy. So I think that he's really good, and it's going to be tough for Keith Butler in this situation because, honestly, on paper, the 49ers team isn't good. Like, they're not good players, in my opinion. Jimmy Garoppolo's still unproven, and, like, they don't really have great wide receivers. These running backs are definitely, like, not going to lie, they're kind of scrubby running backs, but he knows how to use them. The offensive line was actually pretty solid, but now they lost Joe Staley. He's just so good at using what his players are good at to his advantage. It's all scheme to me. This whole 49ers team is just a testament to how good their scheme is. So it's definitely going to be tough for Keith Butler going into this game.
Well, they use a lot of mirroring and motions, and they try to outsmart you, and that's kind of the biggest issue with Keith Butler's defenses, as we know. It's how well will his defense communicate, and it's been a problem we've seen since Game 1, the opening of the 2015 season. So I'm definitely concerned. But again, there should be no excuses now. You add Minka Fitzpatrick. I know it has to be a simplified offense. You need to be able to get, or defense. You need to be able to get your keys in, but there's no excuses anymore. We already went over the amount of talent that's on the defense. They should not give up more than 24 points. I'm sorry. They really shouldn't give up more than 20 points, but as long as they're not on the field a ton, I feel better about the defense, but I still need to see less unforced errors by the coaching staff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%.
So you talked about Joe Staley. It looks like Justin Scully, former 6th-round pick out of Vanderbilt this year, rookie, it looks like Bud Dupree's going to get a chance to go up against him, which should bode well, but we've also seen that Bud Dupree has struggled at times against no-name guys. Can Dupree or other guys on that side break through, or can we finally see the Steelers maybe flip Watt and Dupree like they talked about doing a couple years ago from time to time in order to get more matchups that they liked?
Yeah, I don't really believe in Dupree anymore for this kind of stuff. Like, it should be a easy matchup. It should be his advantage because it's a backup guy, but I'm just not... I've been disappointed. I've seen this story before, and I've been disappointed. I think it's best if they try to put TJ Watt back in his original spot just for a little bit to try and take advantage of it, because I just don't trust Bud Dupree to do so. I'm hoping for more, but like I feel like Bud Dupree only gets these like coverage sacks and stuff and can't take advantage of a matchup like this because he struggles turning his speed into power. So against a big guy, it doesn't matter which kind of big guy it is, even if he's not a skilled big guy with his hands or movement, the only way Bud Dupree, it feels like, is going to beat him is either just on speed alone or on a stunt. So I don't have confidence for the matchup of Bud Dupree versus the backup, even though it should be, on paper, a pretty easy matchup. But I'm hoping for TJ Watt to be moved over there, if I'm being honest with you.
That hasn't happened. They haven't done a single snap of that since they flipped sides at the beginning of last year.
Yeah, and you hate to see it.
I would not hold your breath for that. So I'd expect a lot of Dupree. Hey, you know what is interesting, though, with Anthony Chickillo out? Maybe we'll see Ola Adeni play because he's naturally a right outside linebacker first.
I am definitely hoping for that. I'm definitely hoping to see a little bit more Ola Adeni so the Steelers stop putting Anthony Chickillo in on defense and decide that decide that Adeni is the best person to come in next to give the linebackers a break. So I'm hoping Ola Adeni just shows anything in this game. I hope he gets to play a few snaps, and I hope he just does anything. I'm just praying.
So let's set the over-under for Dupree and Adeni at 1.5 sacks.
Under. I'm taking under because I don't think Dupree's going to finish with a sack, to be honest, and I'm not fully confident Adeni getting one either. But I think I'm going to say that they get a half sack. I think one of them combines for a sack.
You had talked about the running backs being kind of scrubby, but they are effective. Stopping the rushing attack was an issue for the Steelers on 3 long runs last week. If they could bottle those 3 plays up, they would have had a good day against the run game. But again, you can't take those plays away. How do you feel about the run defense this week?
I don't feel good because, like I said, you're right. I called them scrubby, but they just know how to use and scheme their running backs. Every single one was effective last week. And granted, it was against the Bengals, which isn't the greatest team in the world, but I don't feel good. I've liked Breida for a while now. Mostert, I was talking to a 49ers fan once, and he's like, all I've wanted is for Mostert to get a chance to play most of the snaps. He's always been buried on the depth chart. And I saw last week that 39-yard touchdown reception that he had where he just cut through Bengals defenders. Just like, he speeds up really fast. So, and then Jeff Wilson, I don't really know much about him. I actually, funny enough, had him on my fantasy team last year at the end of the year when Breida got hurt, and it was just Mostert broke his fibula. But other than watching his fantasy stats, I only knew that he was like a goal line back that succeeded, and you saw him succeed last week against a pretty solid defensive line. So I am actually worried about the Steelers' defense against the run in this game, especially without their normal communicator in Vince Williams. And I feel like Vince Williams also, his best trait is like against the run. I feel like that's one of his stronger suits. So I feel a little bit worried about the run going into this game, if I'm being honest.
What about Jimmy Garoppolo? This is a guy we haven't seen play against the Steelers yet, but he's been up, he's been down. What are you thinking about him?
He's throwing a pick in this game. I said it at the end of the last podcast. He's throwing a pick in this game. He's made at least one bad decision in every game he's played in so far this year. Granted, that's 2. That's 2 games. But I don't think he's that great. I think he's a product of a solid scheme at the moment. and he's not even performing that well, to be honest. I mean, they really ran up the score last week, but I mean, when 3 touchdowns went to running backs, like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just not sold on Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm more worried about the run game than I am Jimmy Garoppolo, if I'm being honest with you. I feel like he's going to throw a pick in this game.
Well, the one guy who is a constant threat on offense is George Kittle. I'm sorry, he's the best player on this team, and Will Dissly had a great game for the Seahawks last week, and George Kittle is at least twice the player that Dissly is. So how did the Steelers hope to slow him down?
Minka Fitzpatrick! This is what he was brought for. I mean, he's playing mostly free safety, and he says he doesn't want to be, like, in the box at all, but I think that this is actually Fitzpatrick's, like, one of his skill sets. He was really good at covering tight ends. Granted, Terrell Edmonds was supposed to be good at covering tight ends coming out, but that's not his skill set, at least at the NFL level. But Minka Fitzpatrick might be not the deal breaker, I can't think of the word, the difference maker. Well, I don't know why that was so hard to come up with. The difference maker in this game, because I felt like the linebackers should have been accounted for Will Dissly last week, but and they didn't perform well against him. So I'm not confident in the linebackers here with Devin Bush and Mark Barron. I'm hoping for it, but I'm kind of hoping to see Minka Fitzpatrick maybe lined up in the box a little bit and maybe tried to put on George Kittle. Granted, they're trying to simplify it for him because it's only been a week, but I could still hope, man. I could still hope. Other than that, I don't really think there is slowing down Kittle. Kittle is also a mismatch for the Steelers at the most part. I mean, they have fast linebackers, but I mean, we just saw them not do well against Will Dissly, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, they struggled in particular last week on those seam routes again. We've seen them struggle with those for what feels like forever now, right?
Yeah, it's been a while, dude. It's been a while.
Hold on, I'm having a problem with my audio here. You want to lead us into our next talking point for a moment?
Oh, sure. So really, we just got special teams left because we basically covered the defense. So going to special teams, there's not really much to say. There's not been many returns for the 49ers. Robbie Gould has gone 5 for 7 on the year, and the 49ers have allowed 1 punt return for 1 yard so far. But there is something interesting about this game. It's that both Vince Williams and Anthony Chickillo are out, and Rosie Nix has been ruled out early on in the week. So, what I was thinking from that is that the special teams is taking quite a hit with all these guys out. So, are we gonna figure to see more of Ulysses Gilbert and Ola Adeniyi in this game? And which of the two do you expect to get more snaps on both defense and special teams here?
Well, I would hope Adeniyi is getting more snaps on defense and special teams. We know that he's a solid defender, at least in the preseason, and I want to see more of him there. And as far as special teams go, he's not as proven. Gilbert's the guy that's really the proven special teams commodity. I want to see a lot of him on special teams, more of Adeniyi on defense. I'm assuming that's how you prefer to see it too.
Yeah, that's how I'd prefer to see it. Now, if you were to take the sum of both their defensive and special team snaps, who do you think finishes with more?
I think Gilbert's going to finish with more. I feel like he's going to play every special team snap, and that'll give him around 15, and I think Adeniyi's going to, I don't know how many special team snaps he played, though, you know?
Yeah, it makes it tough. It is tough. I'm going to go with Ulysses Gilbert, too, though.
I'm going to go with Gilbert with a slight but not a very definitive edge.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
My computer's being funny, so I have to go to my phone now as far as the doc goes. So I'm not exactly sure where we are in the outline, so I'm going to have you take the lead the rest of the way here.
Sure, so that kind of wraps up our preview, actually. So we're going on to the NFL Week 3 pick'em, but before we start for the rest of Week 3, we have to talk about what happened against against the Titans. The Titans got introduced to Gardner Minshew, who is currently leading the NFL in forever in a player's first 3 games in completion percentage. It's not, you look at the list, it's actually not that good of a list of the players there, but Minshew has been the most accurate passer in their first 3 games in NFL history at the moment. And he took the Jaguars to the victory. I didn't choose it. I had the Titans covering, but they outplayed it. They won 20-7. It was a pretty solid game. I mean, not if you're a Titans fan, but do you have anything to add?
I mean, it was a pretty ugly game, but I mean, the legend of Gardner Minshew continues to grow. A guy that was a sixth-round pick coming out of the draft this year, he's been excellent in the limited time he's played. Even against the Chiefs, we were talking about how him and the offense put up 19 points. He's been pretty solid, and again, it was just one start here, one win against the Titans, but I liked what I saw.
Yeah, me too. Moving on to the next slate of games, now we're going to be picking for the rest of the Week 3 slate. And Sunday at 1 o'clock, we have Atlanta at Indianapolis. Indianapolis is favored by 2.5 points. What do you got?
I was thinking Colts most of this week, but I think the Falcons, I'm going to pick them. I'm not super confident about this one, even though my heart says Colts. I look at what the Falcons did last week against a pretty good opponent. Even though they're not the same team on the road, I think they're going to be able to put together a nice win this week on the road. A narrow one, but a win nonetheless. So give me the Falcons plus 2.5.
Brissett. Brissett's going to cover. Colts cover him, man. I love Brissett, man. Okay, but moving forward, we have Cincinnati at Buffalo. Buffalo is being favored by 6.5 points. I don't know. That felt like a lot of points to me. What do you got here?
I'd be shocked if the Bengals score more than 16 points in this one. The Bills' defense is legit. The Bengals' offensive line, as we know, is not very good. And even though John Ross leads the NFL in receiving, I'm not confident that that's going to continue here. Buffalo's going to be rocking. The Bills could go 3-0 for the first time in a while here. And I know Orchard Park is kind of rowdy this time of year because this is the only time the Bills are usually legit. So give me the Bills to win a pretty significant couple scores.
All right. I'm going to take Cincy plus 6.5. I don't think Cincy is going to win, but I don't have faith in Buffalo's offense. I have faith in their defense, but I'm not sold on Buffalo's offense quite yet. So I think Cincy could stay within 6.5. Moving on to Miami at Dallas. Fun fact, this is one of the only times in history that there's two teams favored by 20 points in the same week. And this week, this is one of the games. Dallas is favored by 21.5 points in Dallas. What do you got?
All right, so just a quick background. My roommate Will, I've had him on the show before, and my friend Lou, we are going to be betting on the Dolphins to win this game because if the Dolphins win, we're pooling $45. I think we split something like several $100s between the three of us. So for that reason, and because I do like Josh Rosen, I'm going to take the Dolphins to win this incredibly unlikely game, even though, there's no chance. But it would just be incredible to see the Cowboys choke in this one. So I'll take the Dolphins plus that 21.5-point margin, and give me the Dolphins to win this one in the upset of the century.
I'm going to pick Dallas to cover here, man. I learned my lesson from last week. I don't think there's a team that Miami is not going to lose to double digits. It's going to be interesting. Granted, they play Jets twice a year, so I shouldn't rule it out yet. And they're going to play the Bengals at some point. But I'm still going to pick Dallas to cover because I think Dallas is a pretty solid team. Moving on after that, we have Denver at Green Bay. Green Bay is favored by 7.5 points. What do you got here?
I think the Packers cover here. Lay that 7.5-point spread. The Broncos' offense has not been very impressive, and they're going into Lambeau facing a really good Packers defense. And the Packers' offense, although it was stagnant for half the game, they were able to get things going. I think that they're not far away from being able to figure things out. And that Broncos pass rush with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller has gone quite silent. No sacks for their defense yet, which I can't believe that.
Yeah, man, it's really, really bad for them. Not good at all. But that being said, I have Green Bay covering. I don't think I need to say more than that. I think you covered it well. Next game, Detroit at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is favored by 6.5. What do you got here?
I was getting nervous watching Sunday night's game with those hits Carson Wentz was taking. I think the Eagles bounced back after a disappointing loss last Sunday night, though. Even though I've been on the Lions the last couple weeks, I think the Eagles are a little too talented in the fact that they're home. I like them to win in a bounce-back week this time. So lay the 6.5 for me.
I'm going to also agree with you. I think Philly covers here. I think they come back. They're a very good team on paper. They just got to play like it, and I think that they could do it in this game. So Philly covers. Probably the most interesting game this week, at least in my opinion, Baltimore at Kansas City. Kansas City is favored by 6.5 points. What do you got here?
That seems like kind of a large line considering how the Ravens played the last couple weeks and how great that game was last year. This was one of the best matchups a season ago.
Yeah, man. I thought the same thing. I thought it was a little bit too much. I know, granted, Baltimore played some pretty questionable opponents in Arizona and Miami, but this was a very close game last year when Baltimore was probably not as good as it is this year. So, at least on offense, for sure. What do you got here?
I still have the Chiefs winning this one, and not a blowout fashion, but I have them winning by 2 scores here. I just don't see how the Chiefs can put less than 40 on anybody. I know they put up 28 last week, but that offense was in a coma for 3 quarters, and they still almost put up 30 points. I mean, my goodness. I know the Ravens defense is better than the Raiders, but I don't, like we were talking about before, I don't think they're that great. And the Ravens offense, yeah, the Chiefs defense isn't that great, but this is their first true test, and I think they'll come up a little short in this one.
I'm going to take Baltimore plus 6.5. It did seem like a big spread. I don't think Baltimore is going to win, but I think it's possible. But I just feel like Kansas City's offense is unmatchable at this point. So, like you said, like they're ridiculous. They should be putting up 40 points a game on anyone's defense and not care who it is. But I'm still going to say that Baltimore stays within 6.5 because despite Kansas City being their first real challenge, Kansas City defense isn't really that good for the most part. I mean, they got some pretty solid pieces like Chris Jones, Frank Clark, Tyrann Mathieu, and they're in the realm to get better after this Sunday because apparently they're one of the top teams in on Jalen Ramsey. But the moment, I think Baltimore can keep up. So I'm going to keep Baltimore plus 6.5. But after that, we have Oakland at Minnesota. Minnesota is favored by 7.5 points. What you got here?
It's in Minnesota. The Vikings and Kirk Cousins are much better when they can establish the ground game, and they'll have a much better chance to do that against the Raiders at home. So I think they'll win, and I think they'll win pretty convincingly. Lay the 7.5 for me.
I'm going to take Oakland plus 7.5. I just don't trust Minnesota ever. They can't throw the ball. So as soon as a team is able to figure out how to stop their run game, I think they're just messed up. And so I'm not sure Oakland's going to be able to do it, but I'm going to bet on it that it's a possibility and pick Oakland plus 7.5. After that, the second 20-point spread of the week, it's an even bigger spread. New York Jets in New England. New England is favored by 22.5 points. That's a lot of points. So literally over 3 touchdowns. So what do you got here?
That was one of the worst performances I've seen by an offense ever by the Jets last week with Luke Falk and Trevor Siemian. I have no reason to think it's going to get better in New England against what might be the best defense in the league. Even the Patriots now minus Antonio Brown. I'm sorry. The Jets lost by 20 last week against the Browns team that looked awful for most of that game. The Patriots should be able to win this game by 50, so I'll take the Patriots to cover.
I'm going to pick the Patriots to cover as well. They could win another 43-0 game here. The Jets are almost just as bad as Miami. Almost. I mean, they're without C.J. Mosley and Quinnen Williams again, so they're basically lacking talent like the Dolphins are. So on both sides of the ball. After that, we have our 4 o'clock games. We have New York Giants at Tampa Bay. Daniel Jones is getting his first start, and Tampa Bay is being favored by almost a touchdown, 6.5 points. Who do you got?
I have a bad feeling about Daniel Jones in this game. I could be wrong, but I feel like just the way things are going to go, he's going to get folded in this game. I have no confidence in the Giants whatsoever right now on the defensive side, and I feel like the rookie's going to step back and try to make some big plays, and the Buccaneers pass rush is going to get to him a bit in this one. I understand that line may seem a bit big, but I do like the Buccaneers at home in this one by a touchdown.
Okay. I'm actually going to take the New York Giants plus 6.5. I'm thinking they might even win this one. I have the opposite. I have a pretty good feeling. I feel like Daniel Jones may be what the Giants needed to kickstart, I don't know, something for them. And the Bucks offensive line isn't the greatest. It's not like the Cowboys or who did the Giants even play last week? Bills. So I think the Bills offensive line is also better than the Buccaneers. And while the Giants have like no pass rush, I think they could do better here. And you know what's even better? Cesar Skipper got to play them in the preseason, and that's going to be my man. He's going to do well in this game. That's me BSing, but regardless, I feel good about the Giants here. I'm going to pick the Giants plus 6.5 with the idea that I even think they could possibly win here. After that, we have Carolina at Arizona. Arizona is being considered plus 2.5. Carolina is favored by the 2.5. Who you got here?
I feel like these lines haven't been updated since Cam Newton was declared out earlier today. I feel like the line should flip 2.5 points the other way.
Oh, yeah, to Arizona?
Yeah, although then again, maybe Cam Newton being out is actually better for the Panthers. I'm very, very salty about the way the Panthers played last week, and I told Austin I was thinking about picking against them every week the rest of the year, and I'm going to start here.
And I agree with you there. I'm going to pick Arizona plus 2.5. Carolina's a bad team. You can't convince me otherwise. Carolina is a very bad team. And now after that, we have New Orleans at Seattle. This would have been a really cool matchup if Drew Brees was playing, but he is obviously not. Teddy Two Gloves is going to be in there. And Seattle's favored by 5.5, which I personally thought was a lot of points to give up to someone. I guess I have a lot more belief in Teddy Bridgewater than a lot of other people, but I guess I'm just going to say it first. I think New Orleans plus 5.5 with the possibility that they could win this. Seattle hasn't really shown me that they're a great team yet. Like they nearly lost to the Bengals. If the Steelers are as bad as people say, they nearly lost to the Steelers as well. They weren't exactly impressive in the game either. So I think New Orleans, even without Drew Brees, is going to keep within 5.5. And I think there's a good chance New Orleans wins this one. Who do you got?
You know, it's funny that you say all that. I was thinking for most of the day when I was looking at these picks that I was thinking I might want to take the Saints just because, you know, it's tough for a backup quarterback to come in any situation, and Teddy Bridgewater didn't look great, but that is a good team on the road in L.A., and I know that going to Seattle is never easy. It definitely isn't. But that being said, Teddy Bridgewater's been there a couple of years now. It's not like the Saints are a bad team, right? I mean, they're a talented team. I agree with you on this case as well, that I thought that 3 points would have been probably 3.5 would have been a more accurate line. But I guess it's telling you something that maybe they either don't believe in the Saints or they really believe in the Seahawks. What do you think it is more of?
I think they don't believe in the Saints. I think they saw what happened to the Saints after Teddy Bridgewater came in last week, and we're like, yeah, they lost really bad. They got blown out, so they're not going to be able to handle Seattle, which is 2-0.
I'll go with the Seahawks just to be different than you. This was honestly just a coin flip for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. After that game, we got Houston at LA Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3.5 points. Who do you got in this game?
Give me the Texans. They didn't look good last week, but I think they'll win this week, and I don't really have a lot going for me other than I haven't been big buyers on the Chargers this year because of all their injuries. So for that reason, I'm feeling more comfortable with the Houston Texans in this one, even though they are on the road. But it is LA for the Chargers. So
yeah, the Chargers don't have any home games. Let's be real. I'm going to pick Houston as well. Houston plus 3.5. I don't really have much belief in the Chargers this year. I don't feel good about them. So I'm going to pick Houston plus 3.5. I think they're the better team. Sunday Night Football, we have the LA Rams at Cleveland. LA Rams are favored by 2.5. Cleveland is at plus 2.5. Who do you got here?
I think we're about a week away from a Browns implosion.
Yeah, man. I see you. I hear you there.
I don't know if we're necessarily a week away, but I feel like this could be where things start to completely unravel at the seams. The Rams are a good team. I know the Browns will be at home. They won last week, but they looked terrible in the process. They're going to need a good game to beat the LA Rams, even if they are at home. I like the Rams to win this one by 10.
Me too. I was surprised when I saw this. I thought that LA should have had a little bit more respect on their name. They did underperform against the Carolina, but they did just absolutely destroy the Saints. And I know Cleveland's home, but what has Cleveland shown? They destroyed the Jets with Luke Falk at quarterback for most of the game. Was that enough to say that Cleveland could come within 2.5 here? I know I'm gonna eat my words. I know what's gonna happen. Cleveland's gonna win, and I'm just gonna eat my words. But I am gonna take LA Rams by 2 touchdowns, man. The Cleveland team, I think, right now is just not that good. I feel like they're underperforming by a bunch, which I guess means that if as soon as they could get it together, they'll be pretty good team and could be within the 2.5. But I'm not betting on that. They haven't shown me that they could be there yet. I'll take LA Rams to cover here. Last game, Monday Night Football, we have Chicago at Washington. Kind of a snooze fest. I don't really like the sound of this game. Chicago is favored by 4.5 points. What do you got?
Against conventional wisdom with the Bears defense against that Redskins bad offensive line, I'm just not a believer in Mitchell Trubisky at all. So I'm going to take the Redskins to win this one in my second upset of the week, if you will. I'll take the Redskins to win a narrow one, 20-17.
I'm going to pick Chicago to cover here. I think Chicago still overall has a better team, even though Mitchell Trubisky is throwing like Peyton Manning in his final year. I just think that Chicago is just overall the better team. So I'm going to go with Chicago there. So that wraps up our pick'em section. Just going into some NFL news, or sort of like Steelers news. The NFL's top 100 plays of all time has concluded, and there were 4 plays involving the Steelers in the top 30. In order of highest to lowest, like the lowest being the best. Number 12 was Lynn Swan's levitating leap in Super Bowl X. Number 7 was James Harrison's 100-yard pick in the Super Bowl. Number 6, right after that, was Santonio Holmes' toe tap game-winning touchdown in that same Super Bowl. And then number 1 was the immaculate reception with, obviously, Franco Harris's amazing play there. So do you have anything to say about this stuff? That came in as number 1, the best play in NFL history, so it's pretty impressive.
No, but it's accurate. That's all there is to it.
Yep. So with that being said, we'll go into our X Factors and bold predictions. Shoot me some of your bold predictions right now.
Can we do X Factors first?
We can do X Factors first. Do you want to do a draft
did
style?
Did I go first last week, or did you go first? I can't remember.
You went first.
Okay.
All right. So I'll go first, then you go twice, and then I'll finish up from there. So my X Factor, the first one I'm picking is Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's the new addition. I think that he's going to be a big difference maker in this game. We'll have to see, because I think he's a big improvement over Sean Davis, and I think he's better than Cameron Kelly, obviously. But so he's my first X Factor. Who's your 2 X Factors?
On offense, I'm going to start with Deontay Johnson. Like I said before, I know everyone's going to have their eyes on Mr. James Washington, but the Steelers are going to need a third name to emerge, and we talked about him or McDonald. We think Johnson has the better option going forward. So I'd like to see what the youngster can do in his first start ever. So give me Deontay Johnson, then I'll double that down with the bold prediction that he catches 2 touchdown passes. So I'll have Deontay Johnson 2 touchdown passes, and one of them is an explosive touchdown. So one of them is a 20-plus yard grab. On defense, I'll go with Devin Bush. Devin Bush kind of struggled last week. He lit up the stat sheet, but he had a touchdown caught over him, and he missed a couple of plays that he should have had. So I'll name Devin Bush my defensive X Factor, and I think he'll finish with a sack and a forced fumble in this game.
So for me, my offensive X Factor and final X Factor is going to be James Washington. That Oklahoma State connection, I'm expecting to be strong. I want to see Mason Rudolph and James Washington connect. I'm hoping for at least 4 times. That might be a little bit too much, but I'm hoping for that. And I think that he could be the difference maker in this game. They got that chemistry going that they've already had from back in their college days. So those are my 2 X Factors. And then as for my bold predictions, I'm going to say Minkah Fitzpatrick records 2 interceptions in his first game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. The second one is Bud Dupree is going to lead the team in tackles. I don't think that's ever happened since he's been a member of the Steelers. Maybe it's happened like once, but it's definitely not common at all. And then my final bold prediction is Chris Boswell hits a 59-yard plus field goal in this game. And I'm guessing, do you have any more bold predictions?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right, so then we're going to go into our final score prediction. Pittsburgh at San Francisco. San Francisco is favored by 6.5 points. What you got here?
Well, don't get me wrong. The Steelers have the talent and they're capable of winning this game. But the Steelers' history on the West Coast is terrible under Mike Tomlin. You've got a second-year quarterback making his first NFL start on the road, a place where none of the Steelers have played at before. It's an uphill battle, to say the least. I'm really, really concerned about being out-schemed, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I'm worried that they'll, again, unforced errors, poor situations for the defense, and the defense won't be able to slow down the Niners' offense enough, and that'll leave Mason Rudolph with an uphill battle that's just way too much to ask of him right now. So I'm going to have the 49ers winning this one 31-20, so I'll take them to cover, actually. As much as I wish that was not what I was feeling. I don't feel good right now.
Well, for me, 14-2, here we come, baby. Steelers win 33-30 and Pittsburgh plus 6.5. I have a good feeling, and this is probably bad to pick the Steelers 3 weeks in a row to win. Trust me, I think next week I'll return back to, actually it's against the Bengals. 2 weeks. 2 weeks I'll say the Steelers lose. But right now I feel good. I feel like Mason Rudolph is going to be able to, he was built for this, as Mike Hilton would say. There's more to that quote, but I won't go into that. But regardless, I think the Steelers win 33-30. And I think that about wraps it up. Do you have anything else to add?
I'm all set, my dude.
All right, so we're all set. So you guys have been listening to Season 4, Episode 30 of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, you could email us. The email will be in the description below. If you also want to check us out on social media, we got Twitter. We got our own website. It's on Blogspot. We got Facebook. We got all those stuff. It'll all be in the description below, and you can check it out down there. We'd very much appreciate your feedback and everything. So hit us up on social media. Send us an email. We would love to hear it. So everybody, that wraps up this edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast. Have a good night.
Remember, 4 o'clock on Sunday. Have a good night.
Yes, sir.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.